I could not begin to actually think about what is actually about to happen in America, especially within immigrant communities, especially with what Trump is planning to do with everything regarding immigrants. I genuinely cannot think for a second what is about to happen, and by way of putting myself in their shoes and just imagining how scared I would be if I were an immigrant and what is going to happen, right? Imagine yourself for a second that you come to a country after your own country has been devastated by plenty of different things, whether that be cartels, whether that be government mismanagement, whether that be other forms of criminal activity, whether that be form of any of these certain things, that each of them use and abuse both your autonomy and your labor and other things and just exploit you again and again and your communities again and again. And you see that above you is a country that has been feeding to your country about how great it is. Therefore, you think that it is an opportunity to move to this place and potentially get something like an H-1B visa for work to potentially, in an utter system that does not care about you and is then doubled down on based upon your ethnicity and race, that you then get there and have set up a family, you're barely getting by, but hey, at least in this country, it is better than what you were in some conditions, right? At least you can ensure that your children can have education in some form, right? No matter how bad it is getting, from your perspective, it is somewhat marginally better. Now imagine that same state comes on to the television and says, "We are coming after you. You who came to this place. You who saw and bought into the myth and to the lie of the American dream of liberty and bring me your huddled poor and all the stuff of what the Statue of Liberty stands for, and tells you bluntly, we are coming after you. We are putting you in cages, and we are sending you straight back to the fucking border and back to where you came from. You will not be helped. You will not have anything along these lines. You are going to be thrown through the fucking stratosphere back to where you came from." Now, let me get one thing straight, right? When it comes to people getting deported, these are not people that are like, "Oh, well, we're here, and then we're just going to go back home." No, the home that they had is no longer there in some way, shape, or form. The home in which they left either does not exist physically anymore for whatever reason, or is already occupied by somebody else. Them being deported just means that they are no longer in the space of America. And once they are out of the country, they are no longer under the jurisdiction and under the responsibility of America. And if you don't realize how bad of a fucking thing that is, let's get one thing straight. Again, that means that people will not have some form of income. They will not have a form of food or supplies or housing or shelter of some sort. They're probably going to be kept in essentially fucking concentration camps at the border in cages that were both kept in state by as far back as Obama, through the administration of Trump, and through the administration of Biden, and continued to do this through and through and through. This is a fucking travesty. This is exactly what fucking Nazi Germany did, right? And except now, It is just another population. It is not just the Jews or black people or Romani or socialist or so on. It is now a specific group of people that have also gained a sort of mythology within this weird race science of America that makes them be viewed as good labor forces to be exploited, but can also be thrown away. And I say this to say that just like in Germany, we will eventually see this same thing continue forward through other things by labeling other people as not being American. And that starts with citizenship, because birthright citizenship is wanting to be taken away under Trump. And no matter how much you don't like America, as much as I don't like America, this in of itself is something even more fucking insane, right? This is like any country that supposedly cares about its citizens being like, okay, actually, it doesn't matter if you're born here. We define if you are British or not, if you are Irish or so on and so forth, right? It does not matter if you are born here. It matters if you fit into the mold of what an American should be. And under this then means that if you aren't American, that means you're an immigrant or something that can be labeled as such and then can be deported and like just completely exodused from the country at large. It's fucking crazy. It is fucking insane. Right? I genuinely do not understand how anyone with a right mind can think of this as anything other than anti-human. But there are liberals out there who are agreeing with this, which again just goes to prove the point of scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds, right? You insult a Democrat and suddenly you're talking to a fucking Nazi, right? Because everything about their window dressing of wanting to be nice and everything, at the end of the day, they would rather support this sort of stuff as long as it means upholding capital in some way. And if you don't, and you still label yourself as a Democrat or a liberal, guess what? You're not a liberal. You are not a Democrat. You have more in common with me as a leftist or socialist or whatever the fuck you want to call me, terrorist, than any of the right or the left of this country. Because they will sooner uphold the security at the border due to things that they have done than to actually try and fix the conditions of which caused these things to occur in the first place. Such as the influx of like mass people that are looking for jobs, and instead of helping them, right, they are prosecuted. And then there's obviously the thing with Trump that talked about how he wants to label cartels as terrorist organizations, which I think is horrible. Not because I don't think cartels are terrible, right? Like, look, I don't like cartels. I don't think anyone should. But I also don't think anyone should be actively declaring anything stupid, right, against these people. That is fucking lunacy, right? It is absolutely insane, especially nor should you insult them. But I will still say that cartels are not a good thing, right? They are petite bourgeoisie. They are petite bourgeoisie in the form of they are basically just small-time capitalists who wish to exploit and garner money through violence, right? Except with, instead of having a large amount of bureaucracy, it is small, localized, and outside of the government and outside the law, right? They are exactly like fucking corporations, but they are smaller, and sometimes even, depending on how things get going, they can even be, gateways and connections to big business. But yeah, that's I can only imagine how that declaration can then be gained and used to manufacture consent for a ground invasion of Mexico, and then potentially using it to fucking annex Mexico under like some sort of roundabout way, right? Instead of, actually fixing conditions down there that stop the abuse of cartels and corrupt governments, we ourselves have to be even more corrupt capitalists and just try and expand territory and control and be as fascist as possible. Fucking hell. Go support me on Patreon.